Are you going to turn the light off? There's a little... Thank you. If we could go ahead and please call to order the Seminole Airport Authority for Tuesday, March 8th. Roll call, please, Jay.
Jeff Griffin. Here. Bill Wantland.
Here.
Dee Dee Patterson.
Here.
Gary Houck.
Here.
John Kramer.
Here.
Chris Anson. Here. Susan Hammond. Tim Poplin.
Here.
Shane Fisher.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Consideration and action of consent agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Roll call, please, Jay.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Bill Wantland.
Yes.
Dee Dee Patterson.
Yes.
Gary Houck.
Yes.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Shane Fisher.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under current business, consideration and possible action to approve Delta Air Corp Consultants Incorporated to work with the Airport Authority on all matters involving FAA and state grant funds and projects at the Jimmy Austin Municipal Airport.
There's not a cost to this?
Not yet. There will be a cost, but the FAA likes to have the engineer ready to go, so we're going to be starting the planning on the next, whatever next improvement is up on our.
But we feel what they might help us get would offset that by far.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Every time we're.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please, Jay.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Bill Wantland.
Yes.
Dee Dee Patterson.
Yes.
Gary Houck.
Yes.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Shane Fisher.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? If we could now please call to order the Seminole Gas Authority. Roll call, please, Jay.
John Kramer.
Here.
Susan Hammond. Dee Dee Patterson.
Here.
Bill Wantland.
Here.
Jeff Griffin.
Here.
Gary Houck.
Here.
Tim Poplin.
Here.
Chris Anson.
Here.
Shane Fisher.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Consideration and action of consent agenda.
Motion to approve. Second.
Roll call, please, Jay.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Dee Dee Patterson.
Yes.
Bill Wantland.
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Gary Houck.
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Shane Fisher.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Are there any appearances or petitions from the audience for the Gas Authority? If not, do I have a motion for adjournment?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? If we could now call together the Utilities Authority. Roll call, please, Jay.
Susan Hammond. John Kramer.
Here.
Chris Anson.
Here.
Bill Wantland.
Here.
Jeff Griffin.
Here.
Tim Poplin.
Here.
Gary Houck.
Here.
Dee Dee Patterson.
Here.
Shane Fisher.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Consideration and action of consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please, Jay.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Bill Wantland.
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Gary Houck.
Yes.
Dee Dee Patterson.
Yes.
Shane Fisher.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Are there any appearances or petitions from the audience for the Utilities Authority? Under resolutions, under current business, consideration of possible action to approve permit number WL000067160074 for the construction of 351 linear feet of 10-inch HDPE potable water line, 300 linear feet of 10-inch PVC potable water line, and all appurtenances to serve the city of Seminole.
Motion to approve. Second.
Roll call, please, Jay.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Bill Wantland.
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Gary Houck.
Yes.
Dee Dee Patterson.
Yes.
Shane Fisher.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? If we could now call to order the regularly scheduled Seminole City Council meeting. Roll call, please.
Dee Dee Patterson.
Here.
Chris Anson.
Here.
Bill Wantland.
Here.
Susan Hammond. Tim Poplin.
Here.
Gary Houck.
Here.
John Kramer.
Here.
Jeff Griffin.
Here.
Shane Fisher.
Here.
We have a quorum.
If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Bill, if you'd be so kind as to lead us, please.
Sakere Messia, Mishka Hangagi Gudai, Pumaka Sakere Quiche Medo, Moment Potolofa Seminole, Moment Puestio Morgan, Idino Kitchukidis, but Jimmy Sakere Messia Alagiskas. God, whose mercies cannot be numbered, accept our prayer of thanks for the city of Seminole and for all our people. Let us love one another for you, God, our love. Amen.
Amen.
Under public hearings, I would like to open a public hearing to enable comments regarding the applying for a CDBG or Community Development Block Grant funding assistance of up to $150,000 for improvement to city streets.
Good evening. Just a little bit, I know you guys, some of you have been through a CDBG grant before. We have to do a public hearing. It's one of the requirements to get the grant. The Community Development Block Grant is a matching grant that allows cities and towns to quickly, to address quality of life issues which aid both neighborhoods and community revitalization. Seminole has utilized this grant in the past to help fix streets, which is our intention this week here as well. The Community Revitalization Grant must meet at least one of the three national objectives: provide a benefit to low and moderate income persons, aid in the prevention or elimination of slums and blight, or to meet other community development needs having particular urgency, posing a serious or immediate threat to the health and welfare of a community. Each year we put together a list of streets that are in dire need of repair. This year we are looking at a replacement on Lincoln. And are we talking about an overlay on Eureka, Mike? Yes. An overlay on Eureka from Van Drive to Strother, and one block of Hoover from Eureka to Timmins.
No, because Lincoln will take up most of the money, and then
Gessel.
yes,
We'll do Gessel instead of Eureka. Okay. So we're gonna try and do Gessel instead of Eureka, and Gessel is a small street. It goes from Van Drive to Wilson. There are other streets in need of repair, but these three are at the top of the priority list and have the potential to meet the national objective for low to moderate income persons. If approved, the city will be awarded $2,000 per beneficiary, $2,000 per person who lives on one of those streets, up to $150,000 in grant funds, and must match at the same amount. In our opinion, these street repairs and replacements have the potential to meet that criteria. The project is not widening the street and should not displace anyone from their home at any time. Parking might be a slight issue while we're working on the street. I've been there. It's an inconvenience, but the end project is well worth the inconvenience of a couple of days, in my opinion. We welcome any questions anyone may have about this or future projects which we could use CDBG funds for.
Well, it's a good deal going after state money, so,
Yes.
you know, the city's always been good about leveraging on money.
Talk about paving Jefferson from Van Drive to Strawberry. Overlay.
Lincoln, from Lincoln from Strother to Bourne Boulevard is the smallest street that makes that curve before you get to
No,
Strother.
but you mentioned Jefferson, did you not?
Van Drive, I think she
Yeah, coming off Van Drive.
Not
Strawberry.
Jefferson, but, Gessel.
just.
What was the third one?
Hoover, just one block of Hoover.
What's the projected cost for those three? that you have listed?
We're working on getting the projected costs, but that's why we took off Eureka Street. We thought the renovation of Lincoln would cost too much to do all of the streets we wanted to do. So we're going to keep it under the $300,000 benchmark.
Do we have any other questions regarding the CDBG grant? Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Consideration and action of consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please, Jay.
Dee Dee Patterson.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Bill Wantland.
Yes.
Tim Popland.
Yes.
Gary Houck.
Yes.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Appearances or petitions from the audience. Meshik and Associates to discuss the storm water master plan.
This is Janet Mishak from Mishak and Associates, and she's going to talk about the books we handed out last week for the stormwater master plan.
Well, and I'm sure you have it memorized, so we can be very specific.
There's lots of pictures in it.
It should be on this here.
Well, first of all, I just want to say how much we appreciate you letting us do this, because this is fun work for us. And it's been a pleasure working on the projects for the city. Trying to see okay, I'm doing this right. So first of all, I want to talk about Magnolia Creek Drainage Basin. The picture on the left is an exhibit from the report that kind of shows how the area is all subdivided. The whole thing is nearly 10 square miles, and the tributaries that we also did floodplains for and computed flow rates and looked at projects on are 518 for tributary 1, 755, 2144. You can see 296. Good sized drainage areas, and it's a lot of water that comes down to Mitt Phillips and beyond. As far as bridge and culvert capacities go, we color coded this by what storm frequency that that particular bridge or culvert would pass. Most of them are pretty low, except for the arterial or highways. And so you can see this is kind of a blow up right of Mitt Phillips. At this location, these are all very small structures, less than 5 to less than 2 year, less than 1 year. So what this means is all this water here that's draining down towards Mitt Phillips can get in, but it can't get out. So we obviously have the problems that we do with the commercial properties along there. What we did was take a look at 5 focal areas, problem areas that we knew about. The first one, of course, being this, being Mitt Phillips on the main stem. The second one being the downstream end of this tributary that comes in through here. We call it tributary 4. Problem area 3 is more of a placeholder for all of the bridge and culverts in the city that needed to be increased, and we'll discuss that in just a little bit. The neighborhood upstream of tributary 4 in this area that you all are aware of, William Street, and the problems that were fully noted in the flood that we had last year. Then also Grisso Drive from Mockingbird Lane to Sims Place along here, where this is a very steep slope in here, and it just comes down and crashes into that street and goes right through the houses, basically. So in problem area 1, Mitt Phillips, what we developed a benefit cost analysis, basically, where we took a look at what would be the cost of flood damages over a 100-year period. And the present worth of all of those flood damages is nearly $20 million. It's always going to be high when you have commercial buildings, especially that flood and flood frequently, as they have there. First, or alternative two, essentially, I think Chris probably discussed this the last time, was to build a detention facility upstream of Wrangler. This would provide a significant benefit, as you can see. When you look at, and we usually speak in terms of grant projects where you need to have a benefit to cost ratio of at least 1. In this case, the avoided flood damages are the benefit, and for a 50-year project life, which is what FEMA uses for a structural project, would be $8 million of avoided flood damages. The cost without the land cost in it's about $2.5 million. We didn't include the land cost because that's more of a negotiating process that the city would go through depending on whether or not the city felt like it needed to buy land as opposed to buying flood easements. The fact that there's already 128 acres of floodplain that would increase to 204 as a result of this dry stormwater detention facility is the way that all of that would be developed. So the hazard mitigation grant program, which I think is your best bet, obviously, for something in this size, typically doesn't go beyond about a $3 million FEMA share, maybe as high as a $4 million overall share. And FEMA provides 75% of the funding, and the local share is then 25%. So to be able to do something of this magnitude, I think that it would be crazy not to go after a hazard mitigation grant if that's the case. As far as land goes, there's a little room to work, but we obviously we're going to have a high benefit cost ratio on this one. This also requires down here between Lloyd Simmons and Strother, there's an area where the channel is very restricted, and that could just be excavated to provide a profile that would allow that water to go through there. One of the things that we have to emphasize is if we're going to do any sort of channelization or culverts that allow more water to go through, we have to also provide stormwater detention to offset the increase that makes. Anytime you increase the flow rate by taking out the storage that's caused by that restriction, or you increase the velocity, the city is subject to some liability just as any landowner is in that case. So in this case, the detention pump would obviously more than make up for that, and that's included in that cost. We also looked at just channelizing this reach down through here to get a better profile and replace the structures. The cost was another $1 million, but it only improved the benefits by about $100,000. So then we went back and looked at this detention above Wrangler, plus on Tributary 4, this one that comes in on the east side of Met Phillips, we looked at adding some stormwater detention in there. We've already accounted for the detention, such as there is. There's not much in this area, but adding that and still having the excavation down here in this area and the detention pond, the cost is up at $4.6 million, which may be exceeding the cost of what FEMA would allow, because typically the hazard mitigation grant program is for smaller projects. Once you get past a certain level, then it should be a Corps of Engineers local protection project, something that the federal government would actually come in and do for you. But the additional detention pond increased the benefits by $1 million. So it's obvious that upstream detention is the thing that provides the biggest benefit for all of this. And then just for fun, we took a look at what everything would do to provide the most protection that we could get, and again, only raised, which is really just essentially adding in that downstream channelization, and we ended up with just maybe another $100,000 in benefits in this case. This one, and the one previously, both provide a benefit for problem area 2, which was the area, the flooded area on the east side that comes from this particular tributary. These are, the area for tributary 4 down on the east side of Met Phillips is gonna be flooded from backwater from Magnolia Creek anyway, so they, it was a good idea, or at least it made sense to look at those two things together. The culverts and bridges we talked about, our recommendation really is just the state requires on interstates and any, major arterials to put in at least a 50-year. You have that exceeded in some cases. And the other structure is probably something more like a 10-year storm. When we went through and we looked at how the water made it through the watershed, to get bigger structures would require generally a lot of roadway work as well. You'd end up raising the roadway quite a bit, and there was a breakover that doesn't make a lot of sense if we don't have a lot of flooded buildings because of those particular culverts. And then problem area 4, of course, is our neighborhood where we have flooding from this. There are some inadequate pipes that are in here. They're generally small corrugated metal pipes which pass probably less than half of what a smooth flow culvert would pass, a concrete culvert or smooth flow plastic or something like that. So we have substantial flooding. We had a number in the report for the benefit in this area that I frankly just don't trust. So I took it out, and that's something that we're looking at again. I know we have substantial flooding, but I think the number that we came up with from our estimated finished floor elevations was about $10 million, and just, there's just no way that's the case. But we do have substantial flood damages. They're well in excess of the cost of these systems that we're putting in. We took a look at what it would take to pass a 10-year storm, a 50-year storm, a 100-year storm, and there's not a lot of cost difference. So I know that we have a few $1 million in benefits from all of this, so there's a potential for this also to be a grant project as well. Then we moved on to the Wewoka Creek tributary basin, and this one is a smaller basin. It drains directly into Wewoka Creek. It's 343 acres. This is the floodplain that we determined from our analysis. These are the areas that we focused in on because these are the ones where we knew of problems, and also there were just obvious numbers from just seeing how much water got to different places. So we looked at the residential area downstream from the high school practice field, and the residential area along Coolidge, all through here is, actually all through here, is just completely inadequate for the amount of water that gets to it. And we have a stream upstream that's also quite small. And then a storm sewer system that runs through this neighborhood that's storm sewer and open channel areas, but it's very small as well. Stop me if you have any questions in all of this. I tend to kind of blow and go, sorry. The first problem area is the residential area downstream from the practice field. And this one, we took a look at building a big detention pond, which really there is so little, there's a lot of drainage area that comes to this location, and it's to the point where you couldn't really build a structure big enough without taking out houses to pass the water. If you do that, you gotta carry it all the way down to Wewoka Creek. So in this case, we looked at putting in a big stormwater detention facility, and we've designed these in the past where you put the track in the bottom. There's a number of different ways of doing it. The schools never like them when they hear about them, but they've turned out where where they use them, and they've turned out well. So, it's a little bit of a hard argument to make, or maybe a lot, but, it's the only area without just really buying a lot of houses, and we'll talk about actually buying a few houses to make this bigger. But one thing we have to do is to put in the equivalent of a 12-foot by 10-foot reinforced concrete box, just to pass basically, to get the water through there. Now, I know this is an area that's been filled in this location next to the school. I don't know what it looked like before, but right now, there's a very steep slope on this side, and then it's not as high on the residential side, and there's enough water coming to it that this is basically the 120 square feet of storm sewer or culvert area that we would need to pass that. Obviously, if we put in something like that, we would blow out the downstream people, so that you know, we have to combine a conveyance element with a stormwater detention element to be able to do this. These projects, the 50-year avoided damages is $1.6 million. This cost is about $3 million. So none of these have turned out to be something that you could probably go after grant funds for, but what we've determined, we didn't survey finish floors. It wasn't, that part wasn't in our contract, but we did get elevation certificates for a number of buildings, and we've tried to adjust what we had. So we're comfortable enough with what the damage value is that I don't think we're gonna see it here.
I got a question.
Sure.
The school has considered building more of the school up there
Mhm.
with more concrete,
Mhm.
more, there's nothing to absorb.
Mhm.
That's just gonna increase the flooding, correct?
It'll increase the flow rate, it'll increase the runoff. But you have now a stormwater detention requirement. So that's one thing that they'll have to follow. They'll have to submit a report that says that they're not releasing more water than they did in the past. Sometimes engineers turn in voodoo reports, and
No.
I know it just blows you away, but we don't do development work except for a little bit of industrial, school sites. I shouldn't say that, but we do. But we do review drainage for a number of communities as a consultant, and so we see a lot of what comes in, and so you do have to watch for that. I'm not saying that any consultant you ever have in here would ever do that, but it's, sometimes those things are, on a small site, it's kinda easy to prove, that what you're sending off is what you had, but, there's a lot of voodoo that they do so well, so, I have a favorite, webinar, an article by an engineer that I admire greatly that's called Voodoo Hydrology, and it describes the games one can play with all of that. So it's something that you do need to be careful with, but that, if you have a stormwater detention requirement, that's the rule. They can't release more than what they did before. I went into that just because it's a favorite subject of mine, so apologize for that. But this one, alternative one we've talked about. Alternative two, really these are just additive because the stormwater detention is required. These two elements here, this element is required. You have to do it or you have to buy out all those houses. And the detention is required then to offset the increase in flow that you would get from eliminating, all of this is considered floodplain storage, so once you put it in a pipe, it doesn't have the ponding effect, that it otherwise would, so you have to do that. And so then we looked at replacing this storm drain system down here from Jackson Street and Broadway to make this work correctly. It added about $1.7 million, it looks like, and we didn't increase the benefit by more than about $250,000. The houses in there are a little higher, up off the street, and the people we've talked to don't complain a lot about flooding, so I think that's one of the things that, well, obviously, the lower the house is and the more it floods, the higher an avoided flood benefit you would receive. So here we looked at adding a couple, these two detention basins up here. This was at your suggestion. These are two areas that it would be possible to obtain some benefit from. That increases the value or the cost to $5.6 million, but it does, you know, it does provide some benefit. It's just not enough to make it a positive benefit cost ratio. The problem area 2, let's see. Yeah, this is problem area 2. So alternative 2 looks at buying out some of these houses that are in this flooded area and extending the stormwater detention up into this area, and including the 2 detention facilities and this detention facility. It lowers the cost of the required culvert, but increases, of course, we estimated those houses acquisition would probably be about $500,000 by the time you go through the Uniform Relocation Act process. The residential area upstream of College in this area, we looked at basically adding channelization to this, but again, in the upstream area where we're channelizing, that's going to increase flow rates downstream. So there can be some offsetting things that we do for this area up here that wouldn't require as much stormwater detention, but we were trying to take care of this kind of flooding area that we have in this location at the same time. So there may be an option that you all would like to see that's different than this, but I can guarantee you that none of them are going to come up with a positive benefit cost ratio. Then we looked at problem area 4, of course, was this storm sewer system in here. To make it work right, the cost is $3.5 million to put in what would actually pass these flow rates down to where the detention pond would be. It's an enormous cost. We don't have a model through this area for the overland flow, so we did compute benefits in here, but it's important to look, I think, at what the magnitude of the problem is. Now, when we went back and did the same thing, we were able to reduce all of these sizes considerably by improving these 2 stormwater detention areas and reduce that total cost to $2.5 million. And I just, not having basically an overland flow model for this area, we're not clear as to what the flood damage avoidance would be. And I don't know that we had really any flooding complaints that you knew about in that area. It's just that the system is quite small. And I believe that is the end of what we were, there's my grandkids. So let me get back to this. We have not made formal recommendations, but just having gone through this as much, we need input back from you, obviously. But I think for Magnolia Creek, it's clear that the stormwater detention facility above Wrangler causes the biggest bang for the buck. The stormwater detention facility that would be in the tributary 4 area right in here provides a lot of benefits. The excavation down in here isn't a huge cost and provides some benefits. The channelization doesn't. It's just not worth it in either of the 2 alternatives where we looked at that. So if the city were interested in going after a grant, or if you're comfortable with going forward with some sort of land deal on flooding an additional 72 or whatever it is, 78 acres above Wrangler, then it would probably be to do this detention facility. I think the tributary 4 detention facility makes a big difference on these flooded properties down here, and I I think, this is problem area 5, I don't think, I had a slide for it for some reason, but we looked at increasing, the pipe sizes in here so that we could collect the water that came down and then get it in a large enough structure out to that. And I don't even have the cost with me, but that one I think is an easy kind of lower cost project as well. So those, you know, I think that alternative for, and the biggest we could get, if I remember correctly, on problem area 5 was a 25-year design, which is a 25-year storm has a 4% chance of occurring in any year. So to put in a 100-year system would be a lot. We'd have to raise that whole road. It would be a very big jump in price. So we
Janet,
really had 3 systems, I think, around.
Excuse me.
Sure.
Talk to a little bit your experience with FEMA and what they allow and what they don't allow. You, in the cost estimate, did you put any acquisition costs, or did you say you did not?
We didn't, we left the land costs out.
Okay.
And the grant cost, well, the grant we've done grant management for communities before, and in some cases, the community does its own. We put in a large channel project in Edmond, and we obtained a hazard mitigation grant for that. It was about a $2.5 million project, if I remember right. We fit it within the easement that was there, so we didn't have to deal with the land part. But if it's a project where we have to buy land, or if we were acquiring houses, for instance, there's a process that you have to go through, and you have to hire somebody that the state DOT certifies. We're actually a certified turnkey right-of-way firm too, but that's a process that we have costs on that we can do, but we haven't estimated this as a grant project, because I think the agreements that you would make with the landowner above Wrangler makes so much difference in all of this, or if we can even get that, if this
Right.
is something that's even possible to do.
Well, let me frame it a different way. Maybe, I'm asking you grant management questions, and I realize that's not your specialty necessarily, but, okay, let's say, for example, it's a $4 million project to build the retention above Highway 9. The hazard mitigation grant could give up to $3 million, which would leave us $1 million that we would need to have.
Come on, right.
Right. So if we go and work a deal with the landowner to build that retention area, would that, let's say it costs us $1 million to do that, does that count as our match, or do they want our dollars in with their hard dollars?
You know, I haven't done one in a long time where we, do I have to use this? Can you hear me? Where in the past we were able to do that, we were able to get credit for the value of the land, and that's probably still the case.
Okay.
I can check with the state. That would be wonderful to be able to do that. It depends on how you go. If FEMA would allow a flowage easement that's granted to the city for the whole 208 acres, then, and it was filed with record, et cetera, then that could be appraised and that value be given, and I believe that would work. I don't know what kind of, you know, if you have to pay the landowner for an easement or whatever, you know, if you pay more than that, obviously, then that would be the value that you use. But that's been the case in the past. The construction projects that we've done under a hazard mitigation grant typically been in right of way or already drained easements or things like that. that would just be something we would have to pursue.
Okay.
And I don't know about tributary for that land over there. I mean, it's kind of a big gully right now anyway, but there is a lot of detention that's available over there.
Okay. Could I follow up on something that Gary mentioned? Okay, figure 4.3, page 50 in the books. I'm gonna. Okay, so, we see, let's see, let me get oriented. Okay, so here's the existing high school, okay? This is the proposed retention area, or detention area. We gave the architects the floodplain study. Until we gave them that, this was actually going to be a gym, I think, or maybe some classrooms. They said, oh, well, okay, we see now that's not gonna work. What we're going to do is basically concrete everything up here or make it impervious surface up here. A later page shows that the drainage basically begins to come this way, but it's all in the same basin draining to this spot.
Right.
So, is that something that we, all right, maybe this is a two-part question. First would be, when we get these plans, are we going to be able to send it to you and have you evaluate
Sure.
to determine, is this even gonna work, or is it gonna add additional flood issues on this side?
Well, just increasing flow rates is not allowed, so we can certainly look at that. A lot of times, when you develop within, especially a residential area, and you have a lot of impervious cover, and then you put a detention pond and it sends water out that used to sheet flow off, then you concentrate that flow at one area. And I don't know if that's something that they're looking at, but that can be a problem as well, because I guarantee you that as soon as something gets built, the next time it rains, even an existing problem becomes something that was caused by that as well. So we have to just cover all of those possibilities in the review.
Okay.
But, you know, going around that direction, I mean, it needs to go in the direction that it went, but, it just becomes more of an issue if it's water that more sheeted off that area, and now will be into a detention pond and coming out of a pipe and, you know, causing erosion problems or something like that.
The key word is increased flow rate, correct?
Right, but you can't, state law says you can't increase the velocities offside of here. And so if you do have sheet flow that's kind of gently flowing off something, all of a sudden you have all of that flow concentrated in one location, and it becomes kind of sticky in the, and I'm not an attorney, but, you know, but when on TV, I don't really, but I've been around it a lot, had to deal with, you know, when I've been an expert witness for drainage stuff, it's amazing what can come out. But we would be happy to do a review on this, you know, that's, we do it for other communities, we'd be happy to do it for you, but as far as the hazard mitigation grant FEMA is that what you would have to do at this point is go forward with more of a design, like a conceptual design report that actually laid out how things were, well, you know, it's more like a 30% set of plans. And then that would be part of what you send to FEMA, and at that point, I think during that process, or whoever did it, would be, you know, talking to FEMA about this project. But I think initially you'd wanna go to FEMA and say, we have this $4 million project or whatever, and, but we have a, you know, 2-to-1
Right.
flood ratio for 50 years. Normally, when you do an acquisition project, you get to claim the benefits over the whole 100 years, so it's a little harder to get it for a structural project. But you've got a great one here. And I think we talked about this from the beginning.
We have.
Just what a great place for a bond.
I just have a strange question. Okay, so we have ideally 5 problem areas, and it kind of sounded like most of them were getting pretty close to the threshold that FEMA will handle. If we went in with a whole package of all 5 of them, we mentioned the Corps of Engineers, is that not something that's an option to say, okay, this is our whole issue, it is affecting our whole community. Can we solve it in one big swoosh?
I'd love to do that. They have, I think that their congressional, what is it that they get every year? You know, their project limit used to be 20 million. I'm sure it's more than that, so it would easily handle that. This would easily cover the benefit cost ratio. So if you went to one, and I think if we were recommending this, I think we would recommend that you do both of the detention ponds and that little piece of, and then the pipes, you know, for Brisso. And so if you were to do all of that, you'd probably be in a $6 million thing. You still have to come up with 25%, although we could lobby for using this study, what you've already spent as a portion of that fund. We've done that before. You know, there's a number of ways. I could check with the Corps and see where they are on local protection projects. We've looked at it in some other communities. It's a longer process, and it's a lot more, the rules are more exact, you know, so when it comes to land value, we did one like this for the city of Bixby, where they did a big channel project that took the water all the way out to the river. And in that case, that was a case where we did get to use the land values. Now, that was a local protection project for that one, but I'm sure the rules are the same as far as that goes, for being able, you know, if you have donated land, that you're able to use the value of that as part of your local match, so. You know, that would certainly work. They'd probably like to work.
I have a question on the, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Since we've talked about the school, if the school were to build on that site where the existing high school was, with your study, would they be the ones responsible for the stormwater?
Big detention pond?
Well, or what, I mean, and not just the school, I mean, whoever, I mean, anybody that wanted to build in one of these areas, I mean, if they're going to put off more water, are they the ones responsible for funding?
You probably.
Or is that on
I mean,
us?
I think you can require, and that would be an ordinance thing where you would have development follow the recommendations of the master drainage plan. So if that were a development, say, and that were the detention area, then you can, yeah, the city would probably have to participate for the mitigation part, because what they're doing is just their on-site detention requirements, but there's an additional amount of flood storage. Different communities get, you know, do it different ways or get different results, I
Right.
guess, but I think you probably have to count on at least paying for your share.
You know, from a liability standpoint, I mean, I mean, and again, it doesn't have to be the school, anyone that chooses to build in one of these, I mean, if there's going to be the prospect of more flooding or a higher risk of flooding, I mean, what type of liability does the city have if we were to, knowing this, were to grant a permit or without, you know, and say we didn't have the ability to participate?
Well, I don't know that you can, I don't think you can keep someone who buys or owns the property from developing it
Right.
unless you buy the property and say, I'm gonna put a detention pond there.
Right.
I'm pretty sure, and again, that's a legal issue, and again, I'm playing on TV, but I'm thinking that, that you can require them to follow the recommendation, and in some cases, it's been where somebody develops, you actually, instead of detention, have them improve the drainage system below that to get it to somewhere where they can handle it.
Right.
That's an option you can do. You need to have your ordinance, your adoption of the master drainage plan be that flexible. But, that's a good question. I don't know that I've really thought about what the city's liability would be if they allowed someone to develop in kind of a known area. But again, I think looking at the other side, they could argue that this isn't the only area. You could go buy out those houses along there and put in just as much storage and,
Oh, yeah.
you know, something like that. So I think that would, I don't think the city would have a liability. They have the right to do that as long
Right.
as they do it safely.
Right. Yeah, I know you'd mentioned that, you know, it was against state law to actually push that water, increase the flow rates, do those things that you mentioned. I mean, I'm assuming that that's something that the engineers, architects, for whoever's going to build a structure is going to have to be cognizant of, because, I mean, I guess it would be,
It's the state of the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's common, you know, common enemy doctrine, it's all that's there. So if they don't, and they get away with it, you know, that's, all you have is the, nuisance claim against them.
Right. Tim, did you have something?
Yes, I have a question, thanks. Water detention, the north detention you was talking about earlier. We speaking of the Corps of Engineers, the Corps of Engineers was in the water detention business since their conception. Is there any way that the Corps of Engineers could be brought in, you know, like the flood control lakes and all of that? Can they be brought in as far as the cost on a detention pond north of Wrangler in that area?
Absolutely. You know, if it was a big enough project, they can do that, but they do things a little differently. They're typically a 35%, 65% cost share, but the local, the local share has to completely cover the right of way. So if the land was worth, you know, a third of what the total project costs, then that could be your local match. But it doesn't, but if the land went over that, you'd still have to pay it even if it was more than 35%. So, they do I'm trying to remember, it's been a couple of years. They do a feasibility study during the first year, and it used to typically cost $100,000, and you cost share that 50/50 with them. And then
For their
they-
study?
Well, it's a feasibility study. What it is to follow the federal requirements to show that there's a federal interest in this. And we know that there would be. So after that, then they would begin the design, and then they would handle the construction as well. But, they do the work, they hire, the contractor, they inspect the work, they do all of that. It usually turns out to be a lot more expensive project, and some of that is the way that they contract and the way that, well, they allow the contractors to pretty much do whatever they want and get whatever money is required. does tend to be a more expensive project, but I think it's something that definitely, if you wanna go with a project that would fall outside of the hazard mitigation and, grant program, first of all, there has to be hazard mitigation grant money available, and I'm not real sure, about that right now, but there has been some recently, but it's something that you should talk to them about, cause they'll work out, when we helped with Bixby, we did the hydrology and hydraulics, all of that work, the city did that, and we did that for them, and that became the basis for, the work, there's a section in the design reports that they developed that has that in it, so we did that part, but we got to watch the process from beginning to end, so they were generous with that, with how much the city got to claim in terms of local match. I mean, they're great people to work with, and, this is what they do, and this is certainly, I mean, I don't see many other areas where you've got a detention site that's just right there, and you've got flooded commercial district downstream, it's a no-brainer, and the benefits are there, they have to be there, and, they would do that. And I think if you put all these together, just like you suggested, that there's a road culverts, the other stormwater detention facility, plus the little bit of detention down at the lower end, what did you say, it was about a $6 million project or something without the land?
Yeah, that's giving me a headache. I see dollar signs. Thanks, Amy.
Well, she said free when she was part of the coordinating.
No.
No, not free.
No.
Never free. Nobody-
Jay's our city clerk. He's got a very,
Sorry, had a stroke.
yeah, he's got a very good Coke machine fund, and I'm pretty sure it's not gonna cover
We need to talk
this.
that stormwater utility.
So I'm going to pitch you a softball because I got to visit with the manager from McAllister today.
Oh, good.
Can you give us some ideas on how do we raise the match money for hazard mitigation and or other money?
I think if you've got a landowner that's, would donate or would do something along those lines, that's your best bet for local match. That would be very good. Stormwater utility fee, you can use those however you want. You just have to write your ordinance to show what you're going to spend that on. Didn't we look at that at one time? How much?
Very beginning.
Yeah, and I don't remember the dollar amount, but typically what you do is determine how much money that you need to spend over a period of time, and then you take a look at how many equivalent service units that you would charge throughout the city, and then you take the cost and divide it by that number, and that becomes your fee. So you can, we're doing that for Woodward right now, for a big detention pond and a channel project out there, and that's how they determine the fee. So, that's the other, some communities have done, geo bonds, or dedicated sales tax to it. Those are vote things, of course, maybe. The stormwater utility, typically the council makes that decision, so that might be a little bit easier.
Right.
But,
Okay.
I think once we got down the road in terms of what what recommendation you wanna follow and which path you went, and we'll talk to the Corps and, talk to the state hazard mitigation officer. I'm gonna be talking to her tomorrow, I'll bring it up if you want.
Please do.
And, then, once we have a dollar figure and, we have kind of an estimate, we based it on the number of water meters, just what it
Yeah.
might come up to. And what it would cost to set one up. Stormwater utility fees are typically pay for the cost to do them in 2 to 3 months, and then from that point on, you just have, got your plan set up in the ordinance, and this is where you're gonna go, so. Those are probably your best bets, I think, but the issue, just from what I'm hearing from you, there may be a
So, hearing all this, from what I gather, the biggest bang for the buck is really the retention pond and some of the work along the Magnolia Creek to kind of clear it out and open it up a little bit more. Is that
It's a very small
right?
segment.
Is that, I mean, that's what I gathered from all this information.
That's the best.
How many acre retention was you, I missed that earlier. I read it in there, acres north. You remember that figure?
I believe it was the acres, the surface area of that, 252 acre feet. No, wait a minute. It would have approximately 1,000 acre feet in that. The dam would be constructed quite a bit higher than it is now. And it would, that's about, what we did was look at the maximum volume we could get before it would back up under, the roads on both sides, so. Under McPhillips and then, I can't think of the name of it, but.
Good Hope?
Yeah.
Good Hope.
Good Hope.
It would
that's
cover
it.
Good Hope Road if it's 1,000 acres.
No, 1,000 acre feet.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about
Gotcha.
200, if you took 208 acres and it was 5 feet deep, that'd be about 1,000
I gotcha.
acre feet.
Okay, thank you.
But it's in a cone sort of shape, And this is based on us just doing everything we can to reduce the flow as much as possible downstream. You do pick up other, drainage basins, after not too long downstream, but it reduces that flow rate enough, and you have I believe that's a 5-year capacity that. We're talking about catching this at this location here, both of these streams, but, once you get downstream, it doesn't take very long before all this hits you. It's just that it can get in and out before the water from the north comes.
So I know the study was really about inside the city limits, but just north of Good Hope Road is a flood control lake. Was anything looked at it, if it could be cleaned out, or, it's, I don't know how old it is.
We included it in as a part of the model, but there's just so much area that's uncontrollable with that. But we didn't, is it an NRCS dam?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Just on the other side of Good Hope, is that an NRCS dam?
Yes, it is. But you may want to explain to him that the water level is counts just the same as an asphalt road. It's the freeboard above that would be counted, and cleaning out the pond is not going to.
Won't help that any at all.
Right.
Oh,
Because your
right.
flow is still the same.
It's from where the water level is now to above that, but, there may be something they could do to the dam, but those are typically 50 or 60 years old, and they,
Can we charge for fishing in it?
that's another one. We'll put a nice wet pond in the bottom.
There you go.
And fish.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well, at this point, we'll make our recommendations as part of this and then submit the report and, finish that up. If you want us to help with any of this, we'd be glad to. And we've done, I'm old, so I've done a lot of different things, but, I can at least point you in the right direction, when it comes to, getting to the one thing we need to. So please don't hesitate to ask for that.
You've done a great job. Thank
Yes,
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate that. And just want to point out that I have armed all of my grandchildren. It's amazing what a $2
Mm-hmm.
lightsaber will do for the property.
Good job.
Are there any other questions for her? Thank you very much. Under approvals and acceptances, bids, consideration of possible action to approve the sole bid of $25,672 from United Industries for a spiral slide ADA stairs and water basketball at the municipal swimming pool to be fully funded by grant proceeds already received of $30,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please, Jay.
Dee Patterson.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Bill Wantland.
Absolutely, yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Gary Howe.
Yes.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Number 2, consideration and possible action to approve the low bid of $86,705 from Land Shark Property Solutions for the rehab of the equestrian riding trails at Sportsman's Lake. This is a FEMA reimbursable project.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please, Jay.
Dee Patterson.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Bill Wantland.
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Gary Howe.
Yes.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under resolutions, number 3, consideration and possible action to approve resolution number 2016-2, a resolution providing for the sale and consumption of wine and Low Point beer in Municipal Park from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. during the Made in Oklahoma Festival on April 2nd, 2016. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion?
Second.
Roll call, please, Jay.
Dee Patterson.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Bill Wantland.
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Gary Howe.
No.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
No.
Motion passes.
Number 4, consideration possible action to approve resolution number 2016-3, a resolution affirming the city's commitment to take all action within its power to facilitate the receipt of the acceptance of community development funds if the city is awarded a CDBG grant.
By all means.
Roll call, please, Jay.
Dee Patterson.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Bill Wantland.
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Gary Howe.
Yes.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under current business, number 5, consideration possible action to approve allowing the Seminole Chamber of Commerce to host the annual Made in Oklahoma Festival at Municipal Park and to close Grisso from Fairway Drive to Keith Marshall on Saturday, April 2nd from 6 a.m. through Saturday evening.
Can I ask, is there like an alternate plan in case it floods?
After seeing her deal, I'm thinking we might have to pick like Oklahoma City or something, but yes,
Okay.
it would be back to Main Street. And, you want me to come up here?
So do we need to, if that's the case, we also need to move that we close Main Street, just in case.
In the request,
In
in the
a-
request, it does
okay,
say
does it?
in the
Okay.
actual printed document that we sent in for the permit board and park board, that it says that we would like to close them for the night before because we set up. So we're praying that this rain is gonna get it all gone, and Mike has said that if we get like 10 to 12 days before the event, that will be perfect. So, just a quick thing, I gave you guys two copies. This is a kind of makeshift map for the event, and this is our kind of program of event, because we are trying to make this a bigger and better day. We want people to come to Seminole and be able to spend the whole day here, not just a couple of hours at our event. So in all of our advertising, we are promoting all the things that we're aware of at this point in this advertising. So from breakfast, we've added a car show, and at this point, we're almost about a month out, and we have about 35 cars, and the gentleman that's doing it has said 2 to 3 times that, depending on the weather, we'll sign up that particular day. So we're thinking 60 to 75 cars, so we're very excited for that to even be our first one. We were just hoping for 50. So lots of great stuff going on. Inflatables, of course, the epic run, so just a great day, and we're just trying to add more and more to it each year.
Another question is, on the, like when we do the 4th of July stuff, we have a fence to keep kids from running out in the highway. Is there anything gonna happen like that?
Not for this event. This particular event is more adult focused, where the the 4th of July, and that's kind of the parking thing too. We had some concerns expressed about parking and closing the roads. Twofold. The 4th of July is a really condensed event. So we have about 5,000 or 6,000 people that just swarm the park all at once and stay there all evening long. And that includes a ton of kids because we have about a dozen of the huge inflatables. At this one, it is primarily adult-based. Yes, it's family-friendly, but we just have 2 little tiny inflatables. We don't really promote that part of it because we really want people with expendable cash to come in and shop the vendors and to come and look at the cars and, you know, do those kind of things and spend their money at retail shops in town. And so it's not really focused more so for kids. And parking-wise, those cars will be there from 9 a.m. in the morning, coming and going all day long. So where the numbers are pretty comparable on the amount of people that attend, instead of the cars being there all day blocking all the parking, you know, they'll come for a couple hours and then they'll go to town to, you know, have Cajun food on Main Street, or they'll go shop at the shops on the creek or whatever. So their cars won't be there all the time, so the parking will go up and down, so.
John, is this usually the weekend you guys have the opener for the baseball? I think that's usually pretty crazy that weekend with cars through there.
There won't be no parking up there
And we're,
I mean, closing that road there, you know,
we're just
with the,
closing just that little portion is what we've asked.
which little portion is it again?
Just in Grisso, see where the, like right here on the map, just from this, like where Boomtown is to there.
Okay, but will that not block off the entrance from the road coming in that
No,
way
no.
or from Grisso?
No, they'll be able to come in from Mount Phillips and then go across, and they'll be able to come in off of whatever, that back one over there.
John, do you think that's
Main
gonna
Street,
affect,
I guess would be on the backside.
think it's gonna affect you guys too much?
Oh, I'll hear about it, but they'll just have to go
And we're
another
hoping that,
way. I
and
mean,
we're hoping to get some of that traffic, because we know that there's a delay between games. So to give them the option to come and do something, that may give them.
Maybe I missed this in some of it too, but what's the reason for moving it from Main Street?
Twofold. One, visibility. So being able to be right there where people see a car show and see all the tents and all that great excitement
Okay.
brings more people in, so we can promote, and the vendors, you know, of course, will make more money, which a lot of them are local. And then, 2, with the addition of the car show, different kind of things, but the way that it was laid, we're already condensed on Main Street, and it's very difficult for parking already down there. So with more people and more public coming, we're afraid that that was gonna be an issue too. So.
Well, John doesn't have any objections. I'll make a
No,
motion to
wait.
approve.
Can I-
Oh, you-
I'm sorry, can I ask one question? Amy, on your map here, if you look at the food, what's the P stand for?
Porta potty.
Okay, porta potty, is this a row of trees? Is that our row of trees?
Yes, and it actually, okay, this map is not to scale because I'm not that woman. I need her to come do my little maps. I can't. It is not to scale. This is just kind of, it'll be, because that area is actually like those sizes that I say. It's 1,100 feet and 125 feet, and that's on the inside of the trees. So I
Okay.
just couldn't squish it all.
Okay,
inside.
so that's gonna be inside the
That's
trees?
right. Mhm.
All right.
And where's the car show part at?
On that, where the dashes are. That's why we need it to be dry.
Oh,
I mean, parking is gonna be an issue for you, right?
Well, and we've discussed that, and, on there, this is the only parking that we've used, and across the street at White's and Homeland, for 4th of July. And so, we're hoping,
Cause it'll probably affect the golf course too, people parking up there.
Yeah, they're planning on parking behind Mazzio's, John, is what their thought
Okay.
is.
yeah.
So if it rains,
And that's why I say,
Right.
if it, like I said, we're hoping that 10 to 14 days, like at the 15th of this month, we just all gotta start praying a little bit harder than we already are, so,
Will it be
But
parking
you can't
attendance?
yes.
You might-
Yes, sir.
You're not gonna be able to keep people out of the golf cart, golf course parking or anywhere else.
no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
I mean, I guess I have a little bit of a concern with all the kids in the baseball tournaments and the extra traffic through there, in and out of that would be, you know, my only other concern. I mean, I've already made a motion, but is there something we can do to address, I mean, temporary speed limit signs up or something, make it even slower, or?
And like Tim asked, we will have parking attendants out there that will kind of, I don't wanna say they'll jump in front of a car, but they may be, because they're gonna be, you know,
Do we have-
visible, they may slow down.
Do we have any type of temporary speed bumps and that we throw out? Like I said, that's my main concern is if you've got parents parking over there with kids and little kids running out and
I don't, Amy, have you been there when there's a baseball tournament?
I mean,
Okay,
I've
so,
driven by, I mean, because normally,
I
I mean,
mean-
it falls on the same weekend when we're on Main Street too.
okay,
The
so, but
water.
you've been through that drive?
I try to just
Okay.
be careful.
I just wanna make sure
I have a 6-year-old that
you
runs
knew
in
what
front of
we-
everything, she doesn't pay attention, so.
To answer your question, no, we do not have temporary speed bumps. We've got some stop sticks, but that's probably not what we're after.
That'll slow them up.
They slow way down.
there you go.
So,
Maybe if we lower have temporary speed limit signs and they're over it and they get it, they'll throw the stop sticks out there. Maybe that'll, get people to.
So how would an officer present be there that day, knowing all this congestion and all this is going on?
We're gonna have to watch it around that corner. I mean, really strong. Like, somebody's gonna have to station there, probably.
Do I have a motion?
Well, you do. I mean, I'd say, if we try it this year and it seems like, fall's the same weekend, both of them, I think, every year. The baseball, if it
It'll be a
becomes an
learning.
issue, we may have to, if
And
it's
I
a big
think
issue.
that's the deal. I think this is the opportunity to try it, and if it works, great, and if not, we go to plan other.
Okay.
If you take my revenue away, I'll.
You have people that come down to watch your ball games too.
Well, that's good.
You have to put another concession stand over
That's
there at
right.
the back of the
See?
baseball field.
That's exactly it. Open another concession stand.
Did I have a motion?
Yes, I motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please, Jay.
D.D. Patterson,
Yes.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Bill Wantland,
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Jerry Howe,
Yes.
John Kramer,
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Consideration and possible action to approve renewal of the Heritage House site agreement between New Age Project Incorporated and the City of Seminole.
No change on that, right?
I'm
Move
sorry,
to approve.
stand by. Let me get back up to speed.
Did you have the one from 6 hours to 5 hours, or was that just a misprint in the contract?
It was a misprint in the contract, it's supposed to be 5 hours.
Okay,
Everything else is
yeah, it's the same.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please, Jay.
D.D. Patterson.
Yes.
Chris Anson.
Yes.
Bill Wantland,
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Jerry Howe,
Yes.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Number 7, consideration and possible action to approve renewal of the agreement between Seminole Fire Department and Advanced Data Processing Incorporated Intermedics for the ambulance billing and related professional services.
They've been doing a pretty good job of collecting.
Yes. Yeah, the only thing that's changed in the contract is we went from four computers to 5. The company supplies those to us. Other than that, we pay the same percentage.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please, Jay.
D.D. Patterson,
Yes.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Bill Wantland,
Yes.
Tim Poplin.
Yes.
Jerry Howe,
Yes.
John Kramer.
Yes.
Jeff Griffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Reports, City Attorney.
To go first. The Charter Review Committee convened its first meeting. Very active. Dee Dee, I think, was there, Dolores, Sharon. A lot of participation. I appreciate everybody coming to that. They had already gone over the charter, made notes, had a lot of questions, and I anticipate that sometime in the future, that committee is going to be making some recommendations to the council as far as updating our city charter. So anyway, looking forward to it. We're having our next meeting, I think, next week sometime, so.
Thursday.
Thursday, yeah. That's all I've got.
City Manager.
Yes, sir. We've got the privilege of having the Leadership Seminoles, at least a portion of them, with us tonight. Would you stand up and let us see who you are if you're in the Leadership Seminole class? There you go. All right.
All right.
Bravo. Keep leading Seminole. All right. We already talked about Maiden, Oklahoma. Shura, the American Legion and the Urban Renewal Authority are still in discussions about what to do with the American Legion, what we refer to as the Armory, and the potential to build the American Legion a new building on Main Street. I expect that probably at the end of this week, I'll be meeting with Vice Commander Terry Little and trying to broker a deal where we can get some movement on that. We would really like to have that the Armory. Mike and his crews would like to have a place to store the Snowman Wonderland decorations. I know the softball quad and the folks down there would love to have a place to help keep some equipment dry. And so we'd love to partner with them, have a nice new building in a place downtown. We're just going to have to work out the details. I wanted to brief you on the bridge south of Harvey Road. South Harvey Road, south of the 270. So if you're going down Harvey, cross by Willis number 1, that bridge right there has been giving us some issues. You may recall, I think it was maybe last year or 2 years ago, we had a restriction that was discussed, and the bridge inspectors were a little bit worried. They came back not too long ago, and they were very worried. So we've been down there doing extensive work on that. We're still asking the big trucks to stay off of it. It's not in a good condition for the real heavy trucks, so we should be finishing that up fairly soon. I wanted to, in closing, to congratulate a very successful season for our girls' high school basketball team. They made it to the area tournament. I believe they were led by Abby Carter. Well, all right. She was a participant on the team, and she did very, very well for freshmen. Congratulations. They did great. We're very proud of them. That's all I have.
Ward 1, Bill Wantland.
Only thing I would say is I do, because I think it's very important that we appreciate very much the entire staff of this city and everything that they do all the time. And we're very blessed in that way. And for the people of this community. And we just ask that we pray that this community could come together on the question of a new high school.
Ward 2, Gary Hauk.
I agree with Bill. I mean, always. I mean, we have great citizens and we have a great staff. I mean, there's very few communities our size have what we have. So we thank you.
John Griffin. Jeff Griffin.
Two things. One, it's nice to see how much the walking trails get used. It's amazing how many people are out there at all times of the day and evenings, and it's great. Also, I'd kind of like to throw out a thank you to the Vitas Foundation. They've kind of invested into our community, and I want to give them a thank you for that.
Ward 3, Tim Poplin.
Due to the lateness of the hour, nothing tonight.
Ward 4, Chris Anson. Ward 4, Dee Dee Patterson.
2 words, think bypass.
Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Your name came up the other day.